Welcome to the third part of this series. Now the questions. Assume that consumers' incomes and the number of sellers in the market for good A both decrease. Based upon this information, we can conclude with certainty that the equilibrium, the options, price will increase, price will decrease, quantity will increase, quantity will decrease. The correct answer is D. Quantity will decrease. But how? We shall examine this. Both demand and supply decreases in this case. With consumers' income falls, the demand curve shifts to left. A few sellers leave the market, supply curve also shifts to left. The decrease in demand and supply can take place in three ways simultaneously. We have to examine all the three cases before we arrive at the correct answer. Look at this graph. D is the demand curve, S is the supply curve to begin with. The demand decreases, the new demand curve is T0. The extent of decrease in demand is greater than the decrease in supply. The new supply curve is S0. Now look at the initial price and initial quantity. Initial equilibrium E1, initial equilibrium price P1, initial equilibrium quantity M2. After the decrease, equilibrium is at E4, new price P0, it is less than P1, the new equilibrium quantity M1, this is less than M2. We can conclude in this case there is decrease in quantity and decrease in price. We shall examine the next case. In this case also both demand and supply decrease, but they decrease in equal proportion. The decrease in demand is exactly matched by and decrease in supply. The initial equilibrium E2, quantity M2, price P1. New equilibrium is at E1, new equilibrium quantity M1, this is less than M2. In this case, there is a decrease in quantity but price remains unchanged. This is the third case. D0 is the new demand curve. The decrease in demand is less than the decrease in supply. S0 is the new supply curve. To begin with, E1 is the equilibrium point, the prevailing price P0, the prevailing quantity M2. The new equilibrium is at E4. The new price P1, it is higher than P0. There is increase in price. The new equilibrium quantity is M1. It is less than M2. There is a decrease in equilibrium quantity. So the net result is decrease in quantity, increase in price. The price change is uncertain, whereas the change in quantity is certain. In all the three cases, quantity decreases. So, option D is absolutely right. Look at this question. If supply increases in a greater proportion than demand, a new equilibrium price and quantity will be greater than original equilibrium price and quantity. The new equilibrium price will be greater than the original equilibrium price, but equilibrium quantity will be higher. The new equilibrium price and quantity will be lower than the original equilibrium price and quantity. The new equilibrium price will be lower than the original equilibrium, and the new equilibrium quantity will be higher. Well, these are the options. Option D is correct. But why? We shall examine this. In this case, the increase in supply is greater than increase in demand. This graph illustrates this. The new demand curve is D1, it increases from D. The new supply curve is S1, it increases from S. Look at the extent of increase. Increase in supply is greater than increase in demand. Initial equilibrium E1, quantity M1, price P1. New equilibrium point is at E4, quantity M2, quantity increases, price decreases. It decreases from P1 to P0. Our conclusion is quantity increases, price decreases. Look at the option D. The new equilibrium price will be lower than the original equilibrium. The new equilibrium quantity will be higher. Yes, our answer is absolutely right. Look at this question. Assume that in the market for good Z, there is simultaneous increase in demand and quantity supplied. The result will be an increase in equilibrium price and quantity, a decrease in equilibrium price and quantity, an increase in equilibrium quantity and uncertain effect on equilibrium price, a decrease in equilibrium price and increase in equilibrium quantity. Option C is correct. We shall examine the reason for it. The increase in demand and supply can take place in three ways. I have presented all the three cases in the form of graph here. At the left extreme, the increase in demand is greater than increase in supply. In all the three cases, D is the original demand curve, D1 is the new demand curve. Similarly, in all the cases, S is the original supply curve, S1 is the new supply curve. In the second case, the extent of increase in demand is the same as the extent of increase in supply. In the third case, increase in demand is less than increase in supply. Keep that in your mind. We shall compare the change in price and quantity in all the three cases. In the first case, the left extreme graph, initial equilibrium E1, equilibrium quantity M1, price P1. After an increase in demand and supply, new equilibrium is at E4, new quantity M2, it is greater than M1, there is increase in quantity, the new price is P2, it is higher than P1. In the second case, price remains unchanged, quantity increases from M1 to M2. So this is what happens when the extent of increase in demand and supply is equal. Well, look at the third case. The initial equilibrium E1, equilibrium price P1, quantity M1. After an increase in demand and supply, the equilibrium point is E4, new price P0. This is less than P1, there is decrease in price. The new equilibrium quantity M2, it is greater than M1. In all the cases, the quantity increases, but its impact on price is different. At times it is higher, at times it is less, at times there is no change in price. So, its effect on price is uncertain, its effect on quantity is certain. Our option C is absolutely right. Well, with this, our session ends. We shall meet in the next session.